Okay. Heathen, Kragen, and David, how are you guys doing today?
We're great, thank you.
Excellent.
We're good. How's it going?
You guys are doing your first headlining tour of the United States. How are things going?
Good so far. We're, 5, 6 shows in. They've kind of been progressively getting better, so we're really looking forward to tonight in Chicago. It should be killer.
It's freezing. That's all I can tell you. We started off, we rehearsed in Canada, we went to Rhode Island, we went to Brooklyn. It was raining in Brooklyn, and then it turned to snow as we went to Montreal, where it was really snowing. And then from Montreal, we went to Toronto, and then it really fucking snowed. And it's been snowing ever since, and I'm fucking freezing.
Yeah, California boys.
That's true.
are
But Chicago, not so bad. It's pretty nice, and we're back here at Reggie's. We've been here before. I'm still lost in this place every time I come. There's so many doors and stairways. But I want to give it up to all the staff here, the sound man, everybody. It's so amazing. And the kitchen and the chef and the cooks, they are 100% optimal people. So happy to be here.
Any challenges on this tour so far?
Thankfully, no. Fingers crossed.
It's not even,
That's actually very impressive.
It's not even true. It's not even true. back
He's
to
in
the
a burst his bubble.
Back to the fact we've been freezing ass. And
That's a challenge, but it's not a challenge like we had last summer.
We've been good. It's been good, and I'm from California and I live in Florida now, and driving on icy, snowy roads is not my comfort zone, and so the Canadians in the band have been, the drivers in the snow, and they've been amazing, except for Kyle. No, they're great, and so yeah, it's been really good. I mean, the only thing for me challenging wise is the cold. It's just nonstop, and I left springtime in Florida for
We're
this.
going back down there.
Yeah, I know.
In just a couple of
I
days.
can't fucking wait.
2 years ago, you released an album, Empire of the Blind. Tell me about the writing and recording of that record.
It was a little different than we've done before. We actually it took I don't know how long, 10 years in between albums. And
yeah.
we were kind of just waiting for everybody to participate, and it was just difficult. It took a long time because Lee and I were playing with Exodus at the time, and we just kind of finally just had to force it to happen and get it done. And next one's a little more collaborative. I think it'll be interesting to see how that sounds or how everybody enjoys it. But it's we love the album. Dave did a killer fucking performance, and we're really happy with the recording. We worked with Zeus, and it came out killer. And we're just doing our best to finally get to support it after COVID.
Speaking of COVID, the album came out in the midst of pandemic. How was it affected?
Well, how do you think? It was a shit show. We had all our tour plans, and Kragen, who's our manager as well, working tirelessly, hours and hours and no sleep. And even when he's trying to sleep, everything's going through his head, so he's not sleeping. And working with the booking agency to put everything together, which it's a massive, massive undertaking. And then who would expect an epidemic? I mean, holy shit, you know what I mean? In my lifetime, we've never had anything like that. So,
you were saying about epidemic, it happened.
But I know it's his fault. You know what I mean? But it was crazy time, and I remember walking in circles for a long time, and what's happening? But a couple of years, and luckily, the fans really, unbelievably, because of the epidemic, everybody's home listening to music, and you're listening to lots of different music, and thankfully people are listening to our record, and we did really well. The record did awesome, and which is, when the epidemic when it was all happening, it was like, oh shit, this is a terrible year to put out a record, but actually it was okay. It was good. And then when we finally got the chance to go out last year, we put together a massive amount of dates. It was like 80 shows, 28 countries, 5 continents. And I don't know, how many flights, Kyle? Like 32 fucking flights.
Too many.
40 flights, 25 countries.
Oh, geez. How many countries?
You mean you did not have your own airplane?
No. But, you know, I mean, it's a lot of flying and a lot of waiting in line. And I'm, you know, I like to fly, but I tell you, after last year, it was like, oh, okay, I had enough.
Well, we did a lot of long flights too, to Asia and Australia, and so those are taxing.
Kragen, you really took charge. You basically wrote the whole album musically and lyrically. Are you happy with the final outcome?
Yeah, I mean, it was done over the process of almost a decade. We signed with Nuclear Blast in 2012, and some of those songs were written in 2012 and then kind of expanded upon. So I mean, really, I have a backlog of music. The whole next record is like mostly ready, and then I have another half an album full of music. So, you know, COVID screwed us up for sure, but also we had just that long period of delay. So I'm happy with the outcome. I think all of us are. It came out really good. We're proud of it. I think everybody had really good performances, and you know, we can't wait to follow it up with the next one and not take 17 years or whatever.
10. Yeah, I mean, in between Breaking the Silence and Victims, it seemed like 3.5 years was a lifetime, and then from Victims to the Evolution of Chaos was like, how many years is that? Like 20 years? Or
18.
Such a long time. And then I never thought that it would take from Evolution to the next record to be like pretty much 10 years. You know, we all are hoping that we buck that trend for sure.
Yeah.
You know, I think we got a pretty good machine running right now. You know, so and as far as the last record, I mean, with the budget constraints and the time constraints, because we were working with Zeus, he was actually recording Hatebreed at the same time, and you know, Kragen did a lot of his, you know, guitar work, the rhythms and stuff, and I guess leads too at home.
I did them at home, yeah.
And so bass and vocals, and then Lee came out with me on the second trip to do solos, and it was like the last week of October, and then the last week of Thanksgiving. I even made Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Went to the local like grocery store. It's like kind of a Whole Foods, or like a not organic necessarily market, but bought a box, you know, basically kind of a pre-made Thanksgiving, and cooked all the stuff. So we actually had Thanksgiving in Massachusetts during the recording process. You know,
David, you have to sing all these songs he wrote. Do you think he captured the spirit of Heathen?
Absolutely. It's just, I honestly, you know, I've been writing most of the lyrics over the years, you know, and it's really interesting, you know, to sing from someone else's perspective. Of course, I've sang other people's songs over the years, covers and things like that. But it's interesting coming from a perspective from Heathen and where we're going. And so, and just understanding where he's coming from, it's just sort of like a growing process all the time, you know. And I'm always like, what is that? What is that? What do you mean by that? What's, you know, I think he even wrote me a long email telling me what this.
No, I put it together for press. Like,
yeah, but
I had like what each song was about. I sent it to you just so you know.
No, I know. but it's interesting because it's just like being in someone else's head, and where the perspective where I was coming from, and especially in the last record, and even back to Victims, you know, just socially and politically, all these different things. It's been this progression, and I feel like where I was coming from in the Evolution of Chaos record, you know, I watched a lot of things sort of come to fruition as years came to pass later, and then as things were starting to take a head, then Kragen wrote this record, which he had been working on different stuff over the years and waiting for me to write stuff, and I was going through lots of different stuff, and you know, like he said, I mean, because of the disconnect with him and Lee doing Exodus, the band wasn't the typical process that we normally have done over the years as far as writing a record, where we're all more involved and we're talking about what's going on and working together. But at the end of the day, Kragen had so much material, and really Lee was not really in that mode. So it's like, do we wait for Lee to write half a record and work with me on different stuff, or do we just move forward? And really, ultimately, it's like the record, all the stuff that Kragen had was great, and we're like, let's go. Let's fucking go. We'll make another one. We'll make another one after that. As long as, people want to hear our music, we're going to just keep on moving forward. So
It's an amazing record, absolutely.
Thanks.
Tell me about some of the new songs that you already have been working on.
that's top secret.
I would say lyrically, there's still the social element that's always been kind of the band's topics for the lyrics. But there's also some more like personal stuff on this one, more so than I think any other Heathen album. And then musically, I would say we're kind of just trying to push the boundaries of what the band does. If you look at the history of the group, every album's been totally different. I would say that the growth between Breaking the Silence and Victims was like very big, and then Evolution was sort of like a modern, growth from Victims, and then Empire we tried to explore more, like even more melodic and heavier stuff than had been done before, and I think we're probably going to continue to go in that direction. The next one, I would say it's even more melodic, but also like maybe more aggressive and heavier. Not necessarily fast, but heavier. So, I have a lot of material. There's a whole album. There are extra tracks. I have another half an album that's not demoed or anything. It's probably going to be like a barn burner compared to the one that we're working on now. But we'll see. I think it's going to be really cool. I mean, it's everything that we do is designed to fit David's voice, because we're one of the few bands in the thrash genre that has a melodic singer, and we want to have the vocals be melodic. There are enough bands that do the sort of typical thrash grunting stuff, and we really want to maximize what the music is around David's voice. So the melodic stuff is key for us.
Got it. David.
That's news to me, by the way.
By the way, now David, you made a big move in your life. You went from California to Florida. How come, and how is that affecting the band?
I told you that in private.
I know.
Well, I mean, my wife's parents lived there. My wife and her family are from New York, and like all good New Yorkers, they sort of migrate to Florida, where it's nice and warm. But we're all getting older, and our parents are getting older, and we want to be closer to them, help them out as they're getting on, and we want to be around them more. Both of my parents are gone now. I have a lot of family back in California, but they're starting to kind of move around the country a little bit. But it's, we came there, and unfortunately COVID was happening, so it was really different. It's the politics there are very open. It's a very Republican state, and there's some good things about that, and some things I'm like, okay, a little loose. But we live really close to the ocean, which really soothes my soul, and so I'm happy. I'm really happy. My wife, she's a city dweller. She's bored as hell. She was like, I want to go. So it keeps me on my toes to make sure that she's happy too. I'm good to freaking have my toes in the sand, walk my dog, play my guitar, play my drums, whatever, and I have all those things. I'm super content. They probably have to dig my ashes and put them in the sand, or maybe I'll be buried and turn into like a fungus somewhere. I don't know. I think that's where I'm going.
I think you're a fungus, Dave.
Yeah. But no, it's fine. And every time I've been back to California, I love California. I miss my friends the most, and family. And but California's got some issues they got to deal with, and And unfortunately, I prophesized over the summer that California would get all the rain that they could possibly handle, and I was so right, but beyond right, because they've had so much, and I feel for all the different issues that they're having with so much weather. But every time I've gone back to California, it's like I miss the colors of Florida. I miss the green. I miss the water. I miss, just being by the ocean, waves. I can hear them from my bedroom window at night. It's amazing, and it's good for me where I'm at where I'm at in life right now. It's very meditative, and so happy
to hear it.
Yeah.
Kragen,
Yeah.
not only did you write the last record, but you also managing the band.
Yes.
How did that happen?
By default.
Necessity.
Somebody's got to do it.
Necessity.
Necessity.
You know that one?
Yeah.
The bare necessity.
I like the business stuff, so to me, it just made sense. I've been doing that for other bands as well, so it's good. It's a lot of work sometimes, but I want to make sure that everything the band does is at the highest level possible, and I also want to make sure that even the old stuff is taken care of properly. That unfortunately, like most bands back then, they kind of signed bad record deals and don't have old publishing squared away, and things that should have been done a long time ago. So I'd want to make sure that Dave and Lee and even Doug and everybody else that was in the band gets what they deserve from those early records.
Yeah,
so
and
I like doing the business stuff.
And he's not even. I mean, not just for our band, but Kragen has helped a lot of bands from the Bay Area, and I don't even know, maybe some other bands from other areas, but definitely people that I know help them straighten out some of their legal stuff, and he's been really a proponent for basically just what's fair, because the business is just really not a great business model as far as the record companies and the publishing companies. They don't. All these young kids that are coming up in the business, they don't know anything, and nobody wants to tell you anything. And we were also a victim of that. It's really complicated. It shouldn't be this complicated, but it is. And Kragen has been, pretty instrumental in helping a lot of people, and I don't think that, in some cases, some of the people, I don't think they appreciate the effort and how much work goes into it. And that, to me, it kind of, it bothers me when there's situations where Kragen's, I've talked to him, and it's like, they just don't understand what I'm having to do to help them, because people are so guarded all the time, and
everybody's gotten ripped off, and they don't want to be ripped off again. They just have a fear of it.
There's a lot of fear, yeah. Heathen and its members have an interesting history, right? Do you have any anecdotes or stories when Paul Bailoff was in the band? Even though you were not in it.
There. It was that was a fucking really bad area of time, and we were going through a lot of stuff. Really, honestly, we had a lot of issues with one of our band members, and we were not getting along, and for good reason, and the band was struggling for identity at that point because of frustration, but it was all caused by problems with management early on, and then that caused problems with the record labels. And so you get a lot of people they got a lot of people in their ears telling them what they think that they should do, and instead of sticking to their guns and being supportive of everybody in the group, they listened to some of the chatter. And and when those guys came to me and were like, well, we're gonna have to do this, and we're gonna try to, and they wanted to get like a heavier singer or whatever, and I'm like, well, whatever, okay, I thought I brought something, original to the table, but okay. And so then they auditioned a couple different people, but I think that Lee, he was such a big Exodus fan, and Paul was kind of out there, he was right for the picking, but unfortunately Paul, which he is my friend and I love him dearly, was not in the right place to be involved in that project at that time. I fortunately joined another group with a bunch of guys that I knew in Laughing Dead, And, within months, we were already out there playing shows and tearing it up, and I was having a great time. It was a real fresh, breath of fresh air. And then the Heathen guys, after about 6 months, called me and were like, "Yeah, we think we fucked up." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, you did." And but I didn't go back quite away. I was like, I'm gonna do both bands for now until I really make a decision, because I'm not gonna just jump back in. As much as we have history together and I love you guys, what happened there was bullshit, and I'm not happy about it, and I have to think about it. And I'll tell you, I was leaning the other way, and then I had a writing session with the guys in Laughing Dead, and one of the guys in the band made a comment that made my decision for me. And so I walked out of that room, I walked out of that writing session, and I never looked back. And I went back to Heathen, and within 6 months we did Victims of Deception.
It seemed like Laughing Dead had a good buzz going on for a while. How come that never happened?
Because I left.
We're actually going to record one of the songs from that demo as a Heathen song, so it should be cool.
David, one other band you were in a long time ago was Blind Illusion. What memories do you have from that?
Oh, God. We could sit down for
Beer break!
Beer break!
Exactly, long time. Well, I could probably try to make it, nip it tight.
I didn't know I opened up a can of worms.
Yeah, you did. Well, no, because that's my first real band, and when I was a kid, I was always playing music, and I played drums from an early age, and I started playing trumpet in school just because I wanted to play whatever instrument I could get my hands on, and I finally got a drum set. I was like 5th or 6th grade, I was like 11, 12 years old, and my good friend Alvin Petty he had a guitar. He could play a little bit. Got a guitar for Christmas. Mark Biederman from Blind Illusion lived a couple doors down from me in my little neighborhood of El Sobrante. And but then he had moved away about 5th grade. But him and Alvin and I were like the three musketeers, and he would come and visit on the weekends. He didn't live that far away. And one weekend he came to stay with Alvin, and my drums were in Alvin's front room, and the guitar, and he was like, "I want to join the fucking band." So he got a bass, and we started putting a band together. Years, he kind of went through this and that. I left, this and that. Later, Mark kept playing, progressing, and then he started playing guitar. And the guy is just, he's a very smart individual, and picked up the bass quickly and picked up the guitar swiftly. He was shredding at 16 years old. And then he put this band together. It was Blind Illusion, and Alvin Petty actually played with them for a while during that time. But Blind Illusion was going on. They went through a couple different singers. And then I was still playing drums with different people. I even jammed with Kirk Hammett and Carlton Melson, which before Exodus ever happened, to jam with them. And but long story short, ended up, talking to Mark, and they needed a singer, and I was like, we were drunk at a party, and I was like, I could sing for your band. And the next day he called me up and was like, "Were you serious?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "About singing for the band." And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And so I went in and started learning some of the songs he wrote, and then it started to take off. And by that time, and Les Claypool had been in the band before, but had just left. And I brought Chris Olsen into the band when I joined to play bass. And then after about a year, Les came back. And then we got Brian Kehoe in the band. And then the band just took off. And, but we could not get in the clubs. And, got frustrating, and then just infighting and different things. And then Les and Brian quit the band. And then we got different guys. And then all of a sudden the metal scene started happening in the Bay Area. And then it was just a whole different thing. But as Mark tried to push us more into the whole metal thing, I sort of resisted that because we had our own thing. And Metallica started happening in the Bay Area. It was just, everything was just going 100 miles an hour. And something had to break. And so I left the band and was looking to do other things. And I actually was going to audition for the band Ruffian, because I was friends with Craig Bearhorst. And Carl Albert had just left the band to join the band that's playing with us tonight, Vicious Rumors.
It's all connected.
Yeah, and when I went to get the record from Craig, I ran into a friend of ours, or a friend of mine, Leah Schechter, and she actually was Lee's girlfriend. And she was like, my boyfriend's band's looking for a singer. And I said, well, give him my number. And
that was it?
Yeah. Well, Doug actually had called me before that, but I didn't know it was Heathen. And so it just kind of came together. And anyway, the rest is history as far as that. Left Blind Illusion to go to Heathen. And we busted our ass and had a
Like
record
you said,
deal
that's
in
a
here.
lot of history.
Yeah, I tried to condense it. There's a lot of things,
I know.
but
You should hear the long version.
yeah. Well, I mean,
heard it.
with Blind Illusion, it was it was amazing. I mean, before the club scene happened, we'd play parties, and we'd had friends from high school, and it was just incredible time. Incredible. I have so many friends that were just people from school that I didn't necessarily know. They started coming to shows all the time, and now we're so connected. And so I'm so grateful for that because of the relationships that we, developed over those times,
Kragen, what is your musical history looking like?
Jason, our bass player over here, and I were in a band called Psychosis in Los Angeles. And we played together for just probably about 3 years. We were making some headway in the scene, and then grunge came in and metal kind of was going underground, and we two of us continued on and changed the name to Prototype and went a little more, I don't know, I guess you'd call it progressive. So it was like Rush meets Metallica was our idea, and we did that for a long time. And actually, that's how I met Dave. Dave came down to Los Angeles to audition to be Prototype singer. And it didn't work out, but a few years later, when Heathen needed a guitar player, Dave called and I answered. I went up and auditioned, and that's the history.
Finally, what would you attribute the longevity of Heathen? Because despite all of the challenges, you guys are still making records and playing shows.
What was the question?
We're either stubborn or
Yeah,
stupid.
what would you attribute the longevity for Heathen?
Fucking stubbornness. I think that, this is what we love to do, ultimately. And, we're always still trying, everybody that's out there that's still banging away, you want to go out and play, you want to record, all those things. And we've been lucky enough, and that's, through the fans and everything, that we still get to do it. And as long as they want to, pay us to make records, and they want us to come out and play live, we're going to do it because this is what we love more than anything. We just have that drive. And I think that, because we're still hungry, even as it's been so many years, we're still hungry. So we're just going to keep on pushing through until we just can't anymore. It's just what we do and who we are.
Again, any final words?
I was just going to say we're either stubborn or stupid to keep doing this. No, we love music. I mean, we're determined to do something with it. I've been determined since I was probably 16 to figure out how to make a living playing music. And it's still a struggle. But we just don't want to give up because we love doing it so much, I think that's most musicians ultimately. At the end of the day, everybody loves playing or writing or creating whatever part of music they like so much that they just continue to do it because it's their passion. And it's our job as well. We just want to keep doing it. We gotta keep the train rolling at this point. Now that we've finally got everything back and running and toured all over the world, we want everything just to continue. So we'll be doing that. We're gonna do some touring this year again. We have the tour with Overkill in Europe coming up after this, and then we're gonna start working on trying to complete the record and next record and get it done so we can go out and do it all over again. Much to the dismay of our wives.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mark.